Hey, it's Hatstack Mike here, and I'm doing another negative video again. I just recently put out a video where I wasn't too kind to Sonic 2006, and now I'm here to talk about Sonic Forces. And I mean, I like being the happy guy and talking about things that I love, but I have to come in and give some perspective here. So as usual, I've been spending way too much time scrolling through social media, and I've seen a number of people imply that maybe us Sonic fans were just too harsh on Sonic Forces because it really wasn't that bad, right? Okay, so first of all, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am not here to tell anyone that their opinion is wrong or make anyone feel bad for thinking the way they do about something. So if you like Sonic Forces, then hey, that's awesome. Keep loving it and more power to you. My objective here is to give perspective on why us Sonic fans were bashing on this game so much and clarify that, no, we were not too harsh on Sonic Forces. This is another game that I've kind of avoided talking about because I really don't like being negative. Like, go watch my other videos. I like things a lot, I really do. And I like being positive. But this must be done. For the good of humanity, or something, I don't know. On paper, the concept behind Sonic Forces is pretty cool and interesting. Dr. Eggman's finally succeeded in taking over the world, and now you have to fight in a world that he's conquered. It's a similar idea to the Sonic Sat AM cartoon series, which was a unique and darker take on Sonic, which I liked for what it was. But then when this apparently happens, you don't even see the effects of it or anything. You're just told about it through white text on a black background. This bothers me so much. This is just so unbelievably lame. And really, other than a few giant Eggman robots roaming the city, it doesn't really appear to be a world that's been conquered by Eggman at all. I don't know why they pushed this concept so hard when they didn't even try and realize it properly. While there is a small number of animated cutscenes using the in-game graphics, there are a lot of cutscenes that are just told by showing character heads and text boxes. I don't want to be too whiny in this video, I hate this so much. The presentation in Sonic Forces is just so awful. Could you imagine playing Sonic Adventure, and instead of watching what's going on, you're just being told through text boxes? I can't because that's terrible! And I guess I should mention that the dialogue in Sonic Forces is awful, but that's kind of the case with most Sonic games, even the good ones, so I can give Forces a pass on that one. So yeah, you can probably tell that I find the presentation in Sonic Forces to be quite bad. But that's definitely not where I think they dropped the ball the hardest in this game. Okay, I'll just get to my biggest gripe about Sonic Forces right now, and that is the unbelievably bad level design. Before I even get into it, let me show you a clip of me playing through the majority of the first level. Alright, boosting through stuff, more boosting. Oh, I had to jump there. Oh, I had to jump again. Alright, back to boosting. More boosting. And you'll notice I'm only using one hand here because I'm not going to need to touch that joystick at all. Watching myself run some more. And there's some enemies just standing there waiting to be knocked down like bowling pins because they provide no challenge at all. Watching myself run. And you'd think there'd be something more engaging coming up before the level ends, but nope, the level's over. So obviously I will admit that example was cherry-picked. And you know, it's the first level, so it's not going to be too challenging. But on the other hand, that really was a good representation of what it's like playing a level in Sonic Forces. For modern Sonic at least, the levels are just mostly these long, narrow hallways that you just boost through, and not much else. There are enemies, but they just kind of stand there and serve as nothing but something to knock back as you're boosting through the level. I mean, you barely even play this game. You mostly just watch it, and it makes it look like you're doing stuff. And I know I'm being whiny again, I just can't get over how badly designed this game is. And while these levels aren't frustrating to play like in Sonic 2006, I just kind of felt nothing while playing through the levels in Sonic Forces. And for a video game, I think invoking no feelings at all is kind of worse. And then Classic Sonic, who's in this game for like no reason at all. And I say this as a huge Classic Sonic fanboy. Anyway, the levels for him at least have some level design to them, but they're a huge step down from the classic style level seen in Sonic Generations, and especially the 16-bit classics. And then there's the Avatar Create a Character, and I mean, for what it is, it's pretty cool. There are a lot of customization options here, so you can make your self-insert Sonic animal character look however you want them to. There are a lot of different clothing options as well. I made my avatar character look like Knights from Nights into Dreams, so I mean, I appreciate that. There are also different weapons you can use called Wisp Bombs, and yeah, on paper this all sounds really cool. When you're actually playing as these avatar characters though, just like the rest of the game, the level design here is just terrible. You'll just kind of be running along doing nothing, and it doesn't really matter which Wisp-On weapon you use, because all the enemies will just be standing there eagerly waiting to be blown away. For what it's worth, I do think this is something that little kids could get really into, because this is clearly more about the character creation than actually fun and engaging gameplay with them. But to me, all of these cool aspects about the character creator don't matter when playing as them just sucks. The gameplay in Sonic Forces, like how it controls, is pretty good, which makes all my problems with this game just so much more infuriating. The boost engine was first introduced in Sonic Unleashed, and they further refined it for future games, so it's a pretty solid gameplay engine that controls well. So like, they took this game engine that was pretty solid, and just made the most basic, bare-ass minimum stages with it. And then there's Classic Sonic, who controls okay, but it's noticeably worse than in Sonic Generations, and it's like, how do you mess that up? I don't know how to explain it exactly, but there are these slight differences that make it feel more rigid, I want to say. I don't know, there are other people on YouTube who have done a better job of explaining it than I could do, so I'll just leave it at that. The avatar character also controls just fine, but you know, it kind of doesn't matter because the gameplay and the levels are all just so simplified. This aspect of the game is completely subjective, and it's going to depend entirely on your own personal taste, but as for my take, I actually think that overall, the soundtrack in Sonic Forces is pretty good. Whether you consider this to be a good or bad thing, they do some stuff outside of the norm here, and I can respect them for that. I will say that the dubstep remix of Stardust Speedway was something that had to slowly grow on me, but I don't know, now I kinda like it. There are also a lot of vocal tracks in this game that are really cheesy, and I mean even by Sonic standards. The lyrics to some of the songs in this game is just too much. But you know what, overall they still sound pretty good. And of course, there are still a lot of tracks that sound more like traditional Sonic music, like Sunset Heights. And it's some pretty good stuff from the talented Sonic Team music composers. The classic Sonic stages, though, are where this game's soundtrack takes a hit. Because, like, they try and make it sound Genesis-y, but it's the wrong kind of Genesis-y. The music in the classic 16-bit Sonic games just always sounded on a different level from your average Genesis game. But here in Sonic Forces, it's, well... Have you ever seen anyone online talking about the Genesis sound chip and saying it sounds like farts? Well, that's what you get here with the classic stage music in Sonic Forces. Just a bunch of farts. Well, anyway, the music overall doesn't really pertain to any of the points I'm making about Sonic Forces, but music is a very important part of video games, so I figured it was definitely worth bringing up at least. I think the reason that I feel so strongly about Sonic Forces is because of the effect it had on me. I've been with the series since pretty much the beginning, and even after some of the disasters it's had like Sonic 2006 and Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, I still remain pretty optimistic and hopeful about the series going forward. Sonic 2006, for example, is a bad game and they should never have released it in the state it was in. But even with that said, you can tell that game had a lot of passion and ambition put into it. The levels themselves are well designed in that game with a lot of thought put into them, and they at least tried to tell an interesting story with some merit to it. They didn't succeed, but you know, effort was put in. So even though I hate Sonic 2006 and I think it's a terrible game, I can at least respect what they tried to do with that game. They had a clear vision, if nothing else. There were just some circumstances holding that one back. Then on the other hand, there's Sonic Forces, and this game is just so soulless. They just took an already existing gameplay engine from much better games and just kind of slapped things together to make the bare minimum of what would be considered an acceptable video game to put on store shelves. You can just sense the lack of ambition through the nothingness you feel as you play this game. So going back to my point I was making earlier, stuff like Sonic 2006 and Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric didn't break my spirit, and I still look forward to whatever they're making next. But Sonic Forces was the first time I was legitimately worried about Sonic's future. This game, to me, just felt like Sonic Team saying that they were giving up. I know, I'm being kind of dramatic right now, but this game really hit a nerve with me. So with that all out of the way, let me just say that I am so grateful that the next big Sonic game was Sonic Frontiers, which even though it wasn't perfect, was full of ambition and took Sonic in a completely new direction, and I am just so happy that that's what followed up Sonic Forces. So that's what I have to say about Sonic Forces. I know, this was kind of a more ranty and somber video than I usually do, so I'm definitely going to try and make sure my next video is a lot more happy. Just, once I started talking about Sonic Forces, I couldn't stop, and I had a lot to say. But hopefully I've made my point pretty clear as to why us Sonic fans were so harsh on this game. I also want to reiterate that I am not telling anyone who likes this game that their opinion is wrong. If you like this game, then that's great. I'm not here to try and change anyone's mind on that. So now let me know what you think. Do you agree with the points I've made, or do you think maybe I've just been too kind on this game? Or are you someone who likes Sonic Forces, and you think I'm just being a big jerk here and I've been way too harsh? Either way, let me know. Leave a comment on what you think about Sonic Forces, or just feedback in general. I always like feedback. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a hat-stacking good day.